Picture Cleopatra. Go ahead. You're probably seeing a dark-skinned Egyptian woman. Dark hair, kohl-lined eyes, maybe Elizabeth Taylor's face. That image has been painted, sculpted, filmed, and sold to you for over 2,000 years. There's just one problem. It's almost certainly wrong. Cleopatra was not Egyptian, not ethnically, not culturally, not even linguistically, for most of her life. And the story of how the world decided to forget that is more interesting than anything Hollywood ever made. To understand Cleopatra, you need to go back to 323 BC. Alexander the Great just died. No heir, no plan. Just a massive empire and a group of generals staring at each other. His empire gets carved up. One of his generals, a Macedonian Greek named Ptolemy, takes Egypt, not as a visitor, not as a conqueror passing through. He stays. He builds a dynasty. That dynasty lasts nearly 300 years. Cleopatra was the last ruler of that dynasty. The Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek dynasty, born in Egypt, ruling Egypt, but Greek in blood, in culture, in identity. Here's something that should stop you cold. For nearly 300 years, almost 3 centuries, not a single Ptolemaic ruler bothered to learn the Egyptian language. Not one. They ruled Egypt. They taxed Egypt. They built temples in Egypt. They just didn't speak to its people in their own tongue. Until Cleopatra. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn Egyptian. And she didn't stop there. She reportedly spoke 9 languages total: Ethiopian, Hebrew, Arabic, Parthian, Latin, and more. This wasn't a woman who was Egyptian. This was a woman who chose to connect with Egypt, strategically, politically, brilliantly. That's a different story entirely. So where did the Egyptian Cleopatra come from? 3 places, and none of them are honest. First, ancient Egyptian propaganda. Cleopatra was smart enough to know that to rule Egypt, she needed Egypt to accept her. So she dressed as the goddess Isis. She participated in Egyptian religious rituals. She presented herself as a pharaoh in the Egyptian tradition. It was a political costume, and it worked. Second, Roman propaganda, but in reverse. Rome's enemies loved painting Cleopatra as an exotic, dangerous Eastern woman. It made her threatening. It made Julius Caesar and Mark Antony look weak for falling for her. The Romans didn't call her Egyptian because they respected Egypt. They called her foreign to shame her, and the men who loved her. Third, modern Hollywood. 1963. Elizabeth Taylor, $44 million. The most expensive film ever made at the time. That image, the coal eyes, the dark skin, the Egyptian aesthetic, burned itself into global consciousness. It was a costume, a movie costume, and we've been treating it as history ever since. Let's talk about what we actually know. Fact 1. Her father. Ptolemy XII, fully Macedonian Greek. No dispute there. That's half her DNA accounted for. Fact 2. Her mother. Here's where it gets interesting, because we don't know who her mother was. History literally did not record it. Some historians argue this is where African or Egyptian ancestry could enter. Possible, but possible is not the same as proven. The most honest answer is, we don't know her mother's identity. What we do know is that every verified ancestor in the Ptolemaic line was Greek. Fact 3. The Ptolemaic marriage tradition. The Ptolemaic dynasty practiced incest deliberately, systematically, to keep the bloodline pure. Brothers married sisters, cousins married cousins. This was specifically to maintain Greek bloodline purity, not to mix with Egyptian populations. It's dark, but it's historically documented. Fact 4. No contemporary portrait. There is no verified image of Cleopatra made during her lifetime. The coins, the closest thing we have, show a woman with a prominent nose, sharp features, and no particularly Egyptian characteristics. Not beautiful by Hollywood standards, powerful by any standard. Ancient sources themselves said her power came from her voice, her intelligence, her presence, not her looks. Plutarch wrote that her conversation was irresistible, that her mind was the weapon. Fact 5. The language. She spoke Egyptian, yes, but Greek was her first language, her court language, her identity. The fact that she learned Egyptian was remarkable precisely because no one before her had bothered. Here's the real story that nobody tells you. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian, but she chose Egypt in a way no ruler of her dynasty ever did. She learned the language, she adopted the religion, she aligned herself with the people. And that, not her bloodline, is what made her one of the most effective rulers in ancient history. The version of Cleopatra the world sold you was built by people with agendas. Egyptian priests who needed a goddess queen, Roman politicians who needed a villain, Hollywood producers who needed a spectacle. The real Cleopatra was a Greek woman who became more Egyptian than any Egyptian ruler of her era chose to be. That's not a lesser story, that's a far more interesting one. So here's the question I want you to sit with. Does ethnicity define identity? Or do choices? Cleopatra was Greek by blood and Egyptian by choice. Which one made her who she was? And while you think about that, ask yourself something harder. How many other things do you know about history that were built by someone with an agenda? I'll be here, rewriting the record.